And we're back. Time for this week's team's edition of DEKA FIT Elite coverage, brought to you Racing Jack Bauer apparently teaming up. We've got Michelle Navarro and Julie Best as well. So should be in for some fun team racing in this exciting format.
Yeah, absolutely. If for those at home, if you've never seen a team format before, it is very fast. You blink and you miss it type situation here. It's broken down is however the competitors want to do it, such as if someone wants to run the full 500 meters or if they want to split it 250, 250, if they want to do 15 lunges or all 30, all the rower. It's so exciting watching everything, and it's always fun. Each race is different because each competitor is different to see everybody's different strategies of what pays off for one, the podium of the day, but also two, fastest time in the worlds. Do they qualify for world championships? All of that is on the line today when they toe the line.
Yeah, the only stipulations are you have to do the first and the last run together. The rest of the work, you can break it up however you want. In the past, we've seen, a team with one athlete who's super strong in all the stations do the vast majority of the work, and one fast runner who does almost none of the station work. And more recently, we've seen the best times put out by teams that share the load, whether it's taking the ergs half and half or, mixing it up. Maybe one does sit-ups, the other one does box step overs. However they break it up, there's a lot of options out there, and it might be a thing where if you throw a team together at the last minute, you might be figuring it out as you go. But yeah, it's exciting because, again, world championship spots on the line. A lot of these top athletes have already raced this morning, have already put down a solid time, a solid effort, but now a chance to have some fun in the team format. I think across the hybrid space, teams it's something that's always been a part of it, but it seems to be getting more and more prominent and more fun, again, with some of the great times that we've seen put up on the board.
Yeah, I think it's a great addition to what DEKA FIT is by Yancey when he decided, let's go ahead and do a team format, a relay, bringing back the old batons. We have to run with a baton back in like your track and field days. I think it's a great concept. It's fun. It's a great introduction to a lot of people's first DEKAs, such as the open competitors or even age group competitors, maybe not so much elite. But it's a great way for them to introduce what this sport is because maybe they're so intimidated by just doing everything by themselves, the full 5K or, all the stations all at once. So this is always a fun event, regardless of the fitness level that comes through. And it's fun, too, because you mentioned you have one person who may do all the stations, all the erg work, while you have one runner. Then you have others who split it up very evenly, right? And we've seen it work out in both ways, right? If you're a Kevin Gregory, for example, we'll just throw his name out there, of course, who holds the current fastest time in the world in co-ed. You're fantastic doing all the stations as long as you have a very fast runner. Lauren Griffith was his teammate. However, it's also very cool to break it up. And I think he has the fastest male overall time with Colin Steefer as well too. They broke it up if I remember correctly. So each strategy works. It's just a matter of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing is that depending on how the work is shared, you have co-ed times that are just as fast, if not faster, than some of the top male times this season. In fact, like you said, Lauren Griffith and Kevin Gregory have the fastest time overall so far. Now, there's only been 2 elite races, but still a 26:10 is the fastest co-ed time you see there with Katie Duke and Grayson Kilgore, and then Vivian Defuto and Isaac Sanderson. So looking at this list, these are athletes who, by and large, are all competing in the elite field earlier in the day. They're then throwing down in teams. And, of course, you've got Lauren Weeks and her husband, Anthony Parasiti, with a solid 27-37 themselves. Don't know if we have a co-ed team today that could get after it quite like that, but it's interesting. You mentioned, Luke, someone like Kevin Gregory, who's in some ways styled himself a team specialist. I say that as he also won DEKA Strong last year, but he's someone that we all know what he can do on the bike. but he can
Right.
run a little bit too. And this is a format that benefits athletes that can adapt to their teammates' strengths and weaknesses and, figure out the best approach to cover these 5,000 meters and 10 stations.
Yeah, I fall victim to this, and I apologize to Kevin in the process. We got to stop saying that he's not a runner. He is a runner. He does ultra races and stuff, right? And all he has to do is run the first lap and the last lap. So it's not like he's running a continuous amount of a bunch during the races, right? So kudos to Kevin for holding down. He's by far the best partner you can possibly have on the DEKA Fit teams, only because of how strong he is on the stations. The question here today, Xander, is do we have anybody that will live up to maybe a Kevin standard today, or maybe a new face that maybe we haven't seen? I have the list in front of me as well, and there's a lot of names I don't know, and that's another thing that's exciting, very much like with Katie competing earlier today for the elite female race, that this could be a no name that shows up and then does very well and then makes the name for their sport.
Yeah, if you tuned into the broadcast earlier when we were interviewing Julie Best and Michelle Navarro, they said that they would be teaming up, and presumably they're the odds-on favorite, at least as far as we know, in the women's field, and that'll be exciting to see. We got word about 20 minutes ago that Jack Bauer and Glenn Racz, who finished third and second respectively on the men's side, they're most likely going to be teaming up as well, as you see some of the age group and open waves on the course right now. But yeah, to your point, Luke, we don't necessarily know who the top co-ed team is going to be. We don't know, other than those couple of pairings that we mentioned, exactly who is going to be at the front of this race. And here's a look at the top men's time so far this season. Kevin Gregory and Colin Stiefer, and then Paul Fitzpatrick and Austin Tennelshoff, they did that in the same race. That was the season opener back in Knoxville. We were on the call for that. And that was one where we thought that maybe Paul Fitzpatrick would be more of the running specialist, and similarly Colin Stiefer might handle more of the running. But both of those teams split up the work pretty well. And I think something we talked about a couple of weeks ago in that Knoxville race is that seeing what some of the top teams like David McGee and Eric Williams have done, where it's when you're able to share the work and maximize the recovery by splitting up the stations and the runs, that may be when some of the fastest times come in. But you never know, because you could have someone who is a hyper fast runner and able to do just enough on the stations and maybe cut some more time off. But that's the target to beat for the men's teams, is 26-23.
Yeah, and Jack Bauer and Glenn Racz teaming up today for that. I think they have, let's just say, a best enough shot as anybody else when they do it, because they are fast enough on foot. The question is, are they fast enough on the stations? So we'll see how close they can get to that mark this year.
And here are the top women's times so far this year. Haley Brogan and Alicia Keeker with 30:42, and then Karen Guidry and Amber Tate, I believe they won the Knoxville race, the season opener, that 31 flat. So those are times that, again, should be in range for Michelle Navarro and Julie Best, having both run this morning. And in that interview, Julie talked about how she wasn't super confident in her running ability today. She's kind of been getting over some sickness and getting back into it. So that might be a situation where she handles a lot of the stations, because during the individual race, she was very strong on the stations, making up time on all of her competitors. And Michelle Navarro, with a running pedigree, certainly can put in work on the stations as well, but there may be an option there for them to split it up in that way.
Yeah, I actually, as much as there's not, let's say, maybe another female team that might be on the caliber of Michelle Navarro and Julie Best, those two women can very well get the fastest time of the year today. They have the footwork and they have the station work to do that. So that would be something to watch and to look out for during the female heat.
And again, the great thing about teams format over the course of the year, when we have athletes, competing in multiple races, it's multiple chances to team up, and you get to the point where in the World Championship season, you could potentially qualify in multiple team events, because you could have, if you're a guy, you could have a male team or a co-ed team, and vice versa with the female team. So you might have just different combinations. Kevin Gregory, famous for qualifying for about as many possible World Championship events as he could last year and competing in most of them. But it's, again, a great way. It's a great way both for, the top end of the sport to, again, have some fun and sort of team up with their competitors, and like you mentioned, for people just getting into the sport or wanting to try it out, it's, you know, a step up from a DEKA mile maybe for some, or maybe a DEKA mile isn't as accessible at a local gym. But if you're not quite ready for the DEKA Fit, or you did it in the morning and you want to team up with your partner or a friend, it's a great option there as well. So, you know, we focus on the elite coverage here, but I think DEKA Fit Teams is a great way, you know, within the context of one event in one day, it's a good way to kind of expand the reach of this sport and bring in new people.
Yeah, there's always two different types of people that I always talk to when it considers about the DEKA Fit teams, right? You have the elite people who, of course, give it everything they got on the course, and they will tell you it's one of the hardest things they have ever done, because you are 100% anaerobic the entirety of the race. Either you're running all out, a short 250 or full 400 or 500, excuse me, or you're going all out on a rower, all out on a skier, all out on the assault bike. So you are giving it everything you got, your zone 4 and 5 at all times. Then you have the other person who's just brand new to the sport. They're here for fun. They're doing it with their mom, doing it with their significant other, doing it with whoever, right? And they, typically their heart rate is up there as well too. But they'll tell you, "Oh, that was a lot of fun. I would love to do this again," and stuff. A lot of the elite people will tell you, "That was the worst thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm not sure if I want to do that again." So it's fun to see the different variety that comes through, just because of the intensity that this race can provide.
Yeah, if you're a top-end athlete, it sounds paradoxical, but if you're in an individual race and you just feel like you don't have it today and maybe you let your foot off the gas, in some ways you can live with that and live to fight another day and be ready for the next one. But if you've got a teammate waiting for you and sharing the work, the last thing you want to do is, you don't want to be the weak link. You don't want to be the person who gives up or takes their foot off the gas. And so, yeah, as you said, you know, whatever the intensity of DEKA Fit, which is sort of the sharpest end of the hybrid space, given that High Rocks is such a longer time domain, it's that much sharper in this team format, because, you know, it's not necessarily that you're doing a 500-meter run into the assault bike. You might be at the bike waiting for your teammate to finish their run, so you've got a minute and 45-second rest to then hammer way harder than you would otherwise, and then you've got to try and recover however you can. I mean, we've seen, again, Bubbles and some others just lie down on the ground after the bike just to try and get that recovery, because, you know, you've got someone else that's relying on you and vice versa, right? So, yeah, it makes it sting that much more, and the effort is, as hard as it is to think that the effort could be higher than it is during an individual race, that really is true in this team format, especially, you know, when it comes to championship season, and we've got, you know, 10 plus teams in the same category all fighting for position. A race like this might be more of a time trial for some of our top teams, but it's going to be exciting to see nonetheless.
Xander, you've never done a DEKA teams before, correct?
I have not, no.
Okay, so you are a very fast runner yourself. If, let's just say, you had the options of teammates, what would be your strategy going into this? You're a fast runner. Would you want to do all of the runs while having a stronger athlete, such as, like, say, Kevin Gregory, Caleb Yates, Hunter McIntyre, whatever the name is, right? Or would you pick someone on a similar skill level to where you can break things up? How would you come into this strategically? What would you do?
So personally, I would probably want another well-rounded athlete, and that's just myself. Like, you know, yes, I've got decent running ability, but as someone with a bigger frame as well, like I tend to put in solid times on the ergs. And so if there's someone to take, you know, whether it's the bike, whether it's things like the sit-ups, or maybe they're a little bit more efficient time-wise, I think that would help. You know, I don't think I would want to have it, and really just for the experience too, I wouldn't want to like only do most of the running or vice versa, only do the stations. I feel like you want to have, for the experience alone, you know, kind of stick your nose in all aspects of the race. And I think it would be fun to trade off with someone with relatively similar ability. I say that now, it's entirely possible that, you know, a different setup might produce a faster time. What do you think? And I know you've had a little bit more experience in the team side than I have.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I've done it twice, and I've done it with two different athletes, right? First time I did it with my buddy Caleb Yates, who, of course, is a station horse. I will go to my grave saying this, if there's anyone who can match Bubbles on the stations, it's Caleb, just because of the size and frame and the power that he can produce, right? So we did the strategy of him doing the stations, me doing the runs. And I held my own. He also held his own. He died a little bit on the rower. I'll call him out for that. And we didn't produce the time that we did during practice. Now, during practice, we were low 27s high 26, somewhere around that range. And then during the race itself, it was like 28, 29. We both tanked, right? But then I did it with my buddy Kenny Schroeder, who I would say is very well-rounded athlete, very similar to my build and everything. So we split it, and we were in second place right behind Dustin Needham and Rylan Shadegg in Austin last year. And then I tanked after the assault bike. So I that's my excuse, of course. And then we ended up finishing, I believe, 27 something. So I don't know. You know, it's because those times are so similar. I will say this though, it sucked less doing it with Caleb, only because the running I felt like I could recover at some point, just because, just like yourself, Xander, we're both runners, all right? And so I feel like I can recover even in a zone 4, zone 5 state, opposed to when I was switching things off with Kenny, and I felt like I didn't get a break at all at any time, and whether that required a fast 250 or a fast 12 and a half calories on the bike, it just sucked the same nonetheless. So if I had to do it again, honestly, I would go the Caleb route. I really would. It works out well with Kevin. I like their strategy, and if I were to do it again, I would do it with Caleb again. So that's my 2 cents though. Only maybe because it doesn't hurt less, or it hurts less. Excuse me.
And here we go. Here's a look at our start line again. It looks like they're probably going to send everyone out at once, which I think is what we expected when we got a look at the fields here today. So you can see Michelle Navarro and Julie Best there on the left. I see Dustin Needham up front as well. He's, I believe, doing a co-ed team today. And so
always doing relays.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting, and this is cool because you've got sort of races within the race. I like this especially when, you know, maybe there's only a couple of teams at the top of every category, but if you send them all out together, they can feed off each other, right? You've got a female team, you've got co-ed teams, you've got men's teams, and if they're all kind of mixing it up, I think it helps elevate everyone's performance just because there's more people out there to feed off of along the way.
Yeah, it looks like it just might be the co-ed and the female team, because I don't see Bauer or Glenn on the start line. But either way, you know, honestly, this co-ed race might actually be very entertaining between Dustin Needham and his partner, John Howard and his partner. I can't imagine those two would team up with anybody they wouldn't think would be podium contenders. And these women don't look like they've raced earlier today, or at least I haven't seen them. They could have done age group, of course. So they could be very fresh coming into this, which will make it very fast. But as far as on the female side, I mean, our eyes are set on the blue tank top over there on the left, and the neon tank top, Michelle and Julie. I think they're going to have the fastest female time of the year after this race.
And I think I see Jack in the background there, but he is set pretty far back. So maybe we'll see. We'll see when they take off if Jack and Glenn start running or not. But that is, I believe, Jack in the light T-shirt he was wearing earlier all the way in the back. But
That's
it could
true.
be that he's just loosening it up. Maybe they'll send off the men a little bit after. We'll see. We should be just a moment or two away from the start here as we're about to get underway. And based on the start list that we have, Dustin Needham and Kanika Rogers, and then John Howard and Laura McGowan. So that could be a fun battle in the co-ed teams, and maybe there's another group out there that can give those two squads a run for their money. But again, if you watched the broadcast earlier, you'll recognize the two ladies on the left, Michelle Navarro and Julie Best, ended up finishing in second and third respectively after Jessica Viglia was unfortunately disqualified at the end of that race. So they both ended up on the podium, which to a certain degree is fitting because of how close their battle was. They had the exact same time down to the minutes and seconds. It had to be, decided by the milliseconds, a photo finish, if you will. But nevertheless, we are just about set to get underway here in this exciting team race.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting. If they're sending all three categories out at the same time, this is, I don't believe, ever been done before. The elite category is pretty slim for today, but that makes it very exciting for us to watch at home, because not only do we get a chance at watching the top stars, but we can see if, let's say, Michelle and Julie might be the top overall team. Maybe they give Glenn and Jack a run for their money. I don't know. That would be exciting to witness, and we don't usually get that opportunity. So this is if this is Yancey's call, I like it.
Yeah, so again, we're not 100% sure if our men's teams are going to be sent off at the same time. Again, Jack and Glenn are there getting warmed up, and I don't see too many other men's teams, so they may just be kind of hanging back, getting ready to hit it at, when the race starts, but we shall see.
Okay, so I've been having a hunch all day, Xander. We've been watching that gentleman, the shorter gentleman with the yellow black cap. If you see him behind the lady in the yellow, I'm thinking that's Stephen Young, because he was in the elite heat earlier. I remember watching him. And if he is the runner for whoever's doing the stations, I tell you what, with that 14:33 5K speed, that would be the ideal person to have for every single run, right? Now, sorry if I butchered if that's not Stephen Young, but that's the type of competitor you would want to do all of the running. If someone, will say, a stronger stature, such as Kevin, really wanted someone to do all the running, right? So,
and that's similar to
Samantha Faddis in the back there, with the pregnant belly. I had the honor of judging her during the DEKA World Championships mile last year. And she said she was just there to compete and have fun, and she did her thing, and she still put down a very impressive time, even being pregnant. So she looks like she's about to pop any given day. So kudos to her for showing up on the field today to do this with Brandon Faddis. So could be a sibling or her significant other. I'm not sure. So either way, exciting for her.
And certainly not unprecedented for expectant mothers to compete in the hybrid space. We saw Lauren Weeks in the High Rocks World Championship. I think we saw Bridget Brown in the DEKA Fit as well last year. So, it's cool to stay fit, as long as you can up until that point. And I'm sure they're going to have fun out there today.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got our last instructions. Again, you see the actual physical baton. Again, they have to pass that off. If they're going to switch off on the runs and everything. And now Jack and Glenn have moved up. So, yeah, Luke, I do think we're going to get everybody going at once here.
Ooh, I like this. I like it. All right, well, Xander, with that being said, everybody in that thing, what is your overall podium? Because they're all going to be crossing the same finish line. I don't want top female, top co-ed, top male. I want overall. Who you got?
So I think Jack and Glenn, just because of what they put down this morning, I like them at number one. I'm going to say there's a good chance Michelle and Katie finish second. And one of these two co-ed teams, I don't know who it's going to be. Maybe because he had a little bit better of a race, I'll say that John Howard and his partner take third.
I like that. That's good picks. I hope some teams give Jack and Glenn a good run for their money today, man. I really want to see this. This is pretty cool.
So here we go, just about set to go. And we're officially underway here in our Elite DEKA Fit Teams Heat. Again, all three categories out at the same time. Jack Bauer and Glenn Racz, podium finishers this morning in the men's field. They're out there, but hey, it's Michelle Navarro and Julie Best leading the pack here early on.
Yeah, and I have a feeling they're going to feed off of that, or maybe Jack and Glenn are going to feed off Michelle and Julie. Who knows? I can't imagine the running is that much of a difference. I'm not sure who this other team is out in front, but it could just be one of those scenarios where they take it out super hot, let one guy kind of do the run, one do the station. You see that more in the men's field. Oh, I was going to say there's more. You see that more in the men's field, where usually there's a runner and then one with a station. Usually with the females, they do split it up very evenly between the elite and open age group, whatever that may be. Because most of the time, women do tend to break up the machine groups, right? Most of the men, usually you have one real strong guy who could do all the machine work. But I wonder now if DEKA Fit Teams is so regular on a recurring basis that maybe all those strategies are kind of out the window at this point.
Yeah, we'll see. And, looking at Jack and Glenn, I think, both of them are certainly fast runners and solid on station work. I think that's a case where you've got two well-rounded athletes teaming up here, and you see Michelle and Julie kind of running together as well. So yeah, it looked like there was one athlete all the way out in front without a partner, although actually, no, that is a men's team. So at least early on, we've got a men's team right there with Jack and Glenn. So that'll be exciting to see how this unfolds here in Station 1 and get the 30 reps of the alternating reverse lunge.
Yeah, I'm going to be not two faces I'm familiar with, so I hope they give a good show today. In this kind of scenario, it's a little tough when you have maybe about, let's say, 3 or 4, let's just say even 3 men's team. You're guaranteed a podium spot, but at the same time, do you back off the pedal because of that, or do you still try to apply yourself and put a really good time? It could be a mental game sometimes when it's such less numbers in the field.
Absolutely, and we've got this team breaking away. You see our Rabbit running stride for stride with Jack Bauer. So again, you've got 2 guys that ran in the elite field, 2 names we're not as familiar with. Hopefully we find out. Not sure if we're going to get timing chip splits or not here in this team's race, but you know, at least early on, who we expected to be up front is not, and we'll see if that continues here.
Yeah, this is exciting. It seems like they got some wheels on them to at least withhold on some of the runs, and we know Jack and Glenn are veterans at this sport, so I know they have a strategy. And knowing Jack, he's a numbers guy. He's got everything down to a T. So it's just a matter of what these guys are capable of.
And you see there's a transition zone there where the baton can be handed off. In some cases, you've got athletes waiting on the erg, ready to go. Again, part of teams is minimizing the amount of wasted time or maximizing your efficiency. You see Jack sitting there on the rower, ready to grab it as soon as Glenn comes in and tags him. So early on, Jack and Glenn seem to be splitting up the work. You saw Jack Bauer did a hard 250, handed over the baton, and then got himself over to the row. So I'm interested to see if that continues for them. It looks like the other team has this athlete doing the full 500.
Wow.
So right from the beginning, we've got a difference in strategy between those two as you see Glenn coming in and attacking in Jack.
And he held in front of Glenn and Jack the whole time during that whole 500, right? So that was very impressive. So Xander, here's a great question, and this comes down to, I guess, depending on the team, but do you split up the rower at any point? We know that the transition on the rower is typically slower than that of a ski erg or maybe even an assault bike, but would you do it to save your legs for the furtherness of the run at all, or for the race? I've seen people do it. Eric Williams and David Megita have done it, and of course they're world record holders across all of it, right? So there must be some form of strategy for it. But would you do that in your scenario as well, or?
I don't know. I think it's tough. I think if it's a situation, as we see, Jack and Glenn did do the same thing. I mean, if you're confident in your ability to get in and out that quickly, then it may be worth it, because if you can pull, if you can each pull a 250 at 130 pace compared to, maybe a 138 or right around 140 alone for 500, well, that means that if it takes you less than 10 seconds to transition, which should be the case, then you're going to benefit. And if you switch, then the person, who did the first 250 of the previous run can also do the first 250 of the next run. It kind of keeps your order in place. So it does seem like, at least early on, Jack and Glenn are splitting up as much as they can. I feel like they might do that on the ski erg as well, but we have our other men's team continuing to lead here. Wow.
Yeah. This guy's flying, and then very impressive row time then, if that's the case. I'm sure that guy rode maybe a 130, 135, maybe even faster. So they're the ones not splitting it up. Jack and Glenn seem to be the two that are splitting it up. So this is good to see this, because then we can see what plays out best. And they're two of different builds too. It seems like the guys who are in the front at the moment are two bigger, stronger guys. So they're going to do well on the stations. And then Jack and Glenn, your typical runners, skinnier build. I think it's smart that they do split it up, but let's just see if they can hold it out with their intensity.
Yeah, you can see Jack and Glenn continuing to split up the runs.
Yeah, I think as far as a female standpoint, I think it's safe to say Michelle and Julie are probably out front. You see the tank top there kind of hanging around, so they're not too far behind, but it's so early in the run, or excuse me, so early in the race, where really it's only seconds at the matter, or I'm sorry, seconds as of right now. However, come mid-race, it's probably going to pull up a little bit more into 30 seconds to a minute. But that's what's so fun about this race is it does come down to a few seconds, and what could be a 30-second lead is huge in this type of in this field.
And we've got full-on box jumps from the leading team as Glenn comes in and does the more traditional technique. So interested to see how that plays out in terms of overall time, because we had, our men's team where we've had one athlete doing all of the running after the first one, another team with a guy doing all the station work. And it seems like that might have slowed them down, although they are still in front as Glenn is finishing up these last two box step overs.
Yeah, I hate to say it, but that guy in the gray shorts, he is feeling it from the rower, because those box jumps turn into a very steady box step over there at the end. You could tell he is very gassed from that effort that he did on the rower. And I think this is where experience plays off.
I was going to say, that's an example of how hybrid racing can sneak up on you, because I'm sure that for an athlete of, sort of his build, one hard 500 on the rower isn't going to take a lot out of you. But a lot of times in a workout, you might be doing that, recovering, then doing another interval of the same thing. Whereas he had, a minute and a half to rest. Now he's doing a completely different movement, engaging his lower body in that way. And, if he doesn't do any of the running, yes, he's resting right now, but he's going to go straight into, a couple of heavy core movements with the sit-ups and then the ski erg. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, they're still maintaining the lead. Obviously, I think the stations is where a lot of moves can be made later on, and it could be where Jack and Glenn splitting everything up might pay off for them in the long run, but that'll all play out here in the next few stations.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it looks like the co-ed teams are fairly close to each other, too. The battle between Dustin and John Howard. So that should be fun when it comes down to the wire as well, because it looks like Dustin Needham is doing the majority of the runs. And that's another thing. If you're a co-ed, I wonder, if you have a really fast male and a really strong female, how well would they compare if you had the female do all the station work and the man doing all the running? I don't think we've seen that yet, at least on the elite level. I'd be interested to see how that would play out.
So our top teams are into the med ball sit-ups. There's a look at Jack Bauer.
Yeah, Jack's just moving
using
so
his
much faster.
fairly tall frame for a DEKA FIT athlete.
Yeah, Jack looks smooth right now. You could tell the experience of the whole bringing the hip up off the ground, going up on your back compared to full setups. The gentleman in the gray shorts, you could tell, is tanking just a little bit. But it's all a learning experience, right? So he did really well at the beginning. He'll learn from this. Their team obviously looks very strong. They'll build from it.
And there's Glenn Race back after it. So the way that they've been splitting it up, I would expect Jack to do this next 250 and then Glenn probably to start the ski erg. And that seems to be, at least in this race, the strategy for, keeping everyone sort of on that same level, right? You're, using your aerobic capacity on the run, you're using your explosiveness and, your movement on the stations, but not having to do everything in one. That seems to be working out right now for Glenn and Jack. And you see here Julie Best and Michelle Navarro getting after it as well. Yeah, Jack was very efficient on those sit-ups, and we saw the other athlete in the gray kind of have to stop and pause for a second before finishing up his last couple. So that's where Jack was able to make a move and take the lead back for him and Glenn.
I get asked this a lot on a lot of my road shows that I do as far as the split up with the setups, and even in this scenario, the setup med ball pass or med ball toss. It's a very easy transition or switch if you're the same gender. Now, if you're not the same gender, it does take some time because you have to make sure you grab the with the right weighted ball. From my understanding, the women can do the male weight. I don't know why they would, but they can. Just a male cannot do the female weight, right? Because that's clearly an advantage depending on their strength. So it depends on your strategy. If you got someone who can nail out those 25 fairly quick, I say you just roll with it. If not, if you're the same gender, split it up because it is a very fast transition. One can get on the ground pretty quick with the same ball.
And the skier, this is a much easier transition than the rower, so I would expect Glenn and Jack. I would expect Glenn and Jack to split this up, but our top two men's teams are still on the skier together. And yeah, now Jack Bauer is hammering. And this is where, again, the individual race, you have to measure your effort a little bit more because you have to do all 500 yourself and then start running. Meanwhile, here in a team format, Glenn could go harder in that first 200 to 250. Now Jack can go hard, and then Glenn gets ready to run. And so, yeah, this is the example of, and actually they're switching multiple times. So they're really doing hard, shorter intervals. And, this is the example of how a team format can sting even more so than an individual because your output is that much higher on these stations.
Yeah, I really like the whole 125-meter switch. That's what me and Caleb do every single time, and I think it's fantastic. You have just enough of a breathing time, and then you have just a short enough distance where that wattage is through the roof because you can maintain a certain pace that you typically would not be able to, let's say for a 250, if you were to go 250. So I think personally 125 is the best strategy you could do.
And we'll see if we get an idea of a time gap here. So it's about 13-14 when Glenn came out. And see, that other men's team is having the one athlete do all of the stations and the other one running. And, that was their strategy and they're sticking to it. And we'll see, the one who's been doing a lot of their running has definitely been moving well. But you see Glenn here, he looks smooth. And I think this is a case where, you only have to do 250 meters of running at a time. You're going to get a rest in some capacity. So you're knocking this out in, 45 seconds or whatever it is. It definitely can benefit you if you're able to split up the work in this way.
Yeah, this is where they pull away. I don't believe the team is going to catch them unless they have something in their pocket that have not seen. But Glenn and Jack just do this well too often that this is now their race to lose at this point. That was a great move on their half, and I hope they continue the strategy. I hope now, just because they have the lead, they don't switch their strategy. So.
Yeah, and this is the part of the race where, if they're able to sort of continue to build on this lead, where it transitions from winning the race to then just how fast can you go? Because at this point, they're out in front. Can they give some of these top times with a Kevin Gregory and a Colin Stever run for their money? We'll see. We'll have the leaderboard pulled up, and we can put that in context when we get later on in this race. But here's a look at our top women's team in Michelle Navarro and Julie Best.
And it looks like John Howard's team just left the ski erg area. I don't know if you caught that, Xander. Earlier, when they started the ski erg, I swear they were standing right next to Michelle and Julie, and then they went to another ski erg right behind them. I don't know why that was. Maybe co-ed and had a different they were told to go to the left as opposed to the right. I'm not sure. I don't know if you caught that or not. I thought I saw that. Either way, they still came out in first out of the ski erg. So it seems like they recovered pretty well from that.
And we've got Jack and Glenn together. I don't know if Jack was running with Glenn just in case Glenn dropped the dumbbells or something, but now Jack's back out there on the run.
That's another thing I've never seen. If one does half of the farmer carry and the other person picks it up, if that's even allowed, because you have two people on course at that time, it's so narrow. It would be so congested because normally you can carry it the whole 100-meter distance. So we've never seen that issue, but that's interesting. I've never seen a competitor follow like that before. So very high Roxy, right? So I'll be interested to see if that's something that's maybe a new rule or if that's a new strategy that goes forward.
So still a pretty solid lead here for Jack and Glenn. I'm interested to see how they approach the bike coming up here. I think Jack's going to tag in Glenn, and he does.
Yeah, they're splitting the runs. I think that's important. I think that's smart to do. You recover. I mean, that 45-second recovery or 50 seconds, whatever it may be that they're running at the moment, is so worth it. And it makes a world of a difference on your station performance.
So John Howard tagging in his teammate. Looks like they are a little bit ahead of Dustin Needham and his. So this is Laura McGowan on the farmer's carry, having gotten tagged in by John.
Yeah, she's looking strong. I wonder if she competed earlier today in age group or anything. That leads us to wonder a lot of times too. If you're looking to put a really good DEKA Fit team time, I don't think you should perform earlier. This race requires so much effort at this point, and seconds matter, even on the bike. Look at Jack just hammering out. It's you cannot, unless you're just a top level performer, it is so hard for you to do 2 races in one day.
Especially when there's not that much time to recover. I mean, even for these elite athletes, maybe they had about 4 hours, but if you're competing in age group, you're starting later, and that gives you, if you're an age group individual athlete, then teaming up with an elite racer or in this elite category, that condenses that time even more.
Man, did you see that transition on the bike? That looked smooth. That looked really good. I personally think that's also awesome, considering those two's builds and their times. I think they were like a minute 10, minute 15 maybe earlier today in the elite race. They probably just did that in 35, 40 seconds, right? So I think that's very, very important what they just did to solidify the rest of their victory for the day.
Yeah, on the inset screen, you've got the other team, again, sticking to their strategy of one athlete doing all of the station work, the other all the running. And he was hammering there with that very high cadence, but you see now he's struggling and feeling it, and they're not going to transition. You saw Jack hop off and Glenn hop on. The bike kept moving. And, as the bike is moving, there is some calories being accounted for in that situation. So, yeah, to be able to execute that well, these are two guys that haven't necessarily teamed up before, but they, of course, know what the strategy is. Very well done by Jack and Glenn. And just, they're doing the little things here to put down a solid time.
Yeah, this is by far the worst station. Well, one, always for DEKA Fit. We all know this. But definitely from a team setting, because, God, you're just going all out, and that RPMs are just through the roof. I mean, look, the guy is hurting. Poor guy. And he's probably going to have to do all the over the bars as well, too. So it sucks. It just sucks, and it kills you. I mean, that's why they call it Satan's bike, obviously, for that purpose. But that's why you got a teammate to take on the run afterwards for you, right? So.
And here's our co-ed battle. You see John Howard getting after it. And yeah, I mean, even when you do split up the work, it still hurts. You can see Glenn just doubled over, trying to get whatever ounce of recovery he can. I'm not sure if Jack's going to tag him in here or if Glenn's just waiting for Jack to finish these dead ball overs. But even if you split it up, they only did half the bike each. It's still painful.
Was Glenn waving to all his loved ones right there as he's slowly deteriorating on the course. Still waving. I love it. He's got a lot of energy in him, that's for sure. He's got a lot. So it looked like Jack did all of them. I think this is a station where you could have one person do every single repetition. I don't think it really matters if you really split it up or not. Isaac would probably argue to say differently, since he told us earlier that he obviously hates this station, but it's not anything that I think that's going to be truly overtaxing. But it looked like it was saving just enough energy for Glenn to really get back on the run. I guarantee he runs a faster split now than he did, obviously, before that.
For sure. And the other thing is that, obviously if you're the athlete resting, you're resting, but even the one working on that station, because you have to walk around the side every time, I mean, your heart rate's going to come down. You're moving so much slower that, not that it feels good, but there is an element of recovery aerobically while you're doing that station. So in a case like this, where you've just got to gear yourself up for 250 meters at a time, it again doesn't feel good, but you can recover on this station and be ready to hammer as you see Jack moving about as smoothly as he has been most of the race on the run here.
Man, Jack looks like he never even had an injury to begin with. Sorry, I keep looking at all the other cameras that we have on screen that people at home can't see, and I get distracted. He looks awesome. His running looks awesome. He said he felt great today too. So this is good to see him back out here, and I'm glad he jumped into this team race as well, because not only will he get one podium today, but now he'll get two. So.
Yeah, and if you joined us earlier, you heard Jack talk about it. He had kind of a, not the type of injury you'd expect in this sport, nothing sort of overuse related. He had an acute, knee fracture in a rollerblading accident, and, it knocked him out for a while, but he said he's been able to put in, a few months of solid training, is really back to it. And, it's good to see him hopefully back on course for the entirety of this season.
Yeah, and so real quick, noted on the sleds here, I heard Tara say this a couple weekends ago. They got rid of the row and go technique. So that's something at the beginning when we did the Knoxville coverage that I was wondering why they weren't doing the row and go. I was unaware that they got rid of it, and I can totally understand the point of it. I think it's because there's too many people. It gets too crowded, right? Definitely with all the sleds moving, volunteers, the photographers. There's a lot. It's very crowded. So I'm assuming it's a safety hazard. That's why they got rid of it. And personally, I kind of like it because it does give it a fair advantage. And it really makes you strategize who's going to be pushing and pulling, opposed to who's just going to push and who's going to pull, right? So I personally like that they got rid of it. As fun as it was to watch, but.
Yeah, that's another case where, times from previous years may not be as comparable if it's something like that, because this is the station that takes the longest. And so if you eliminate a tactic that can make you go faster, obviously that has impact on sort of overall times in the context of this year compared to last year, similar to some of the standards with burpees knocking times off, in the individual race. But either way, they are out of the tank, and this last run, they'll do it together. So Jack Bauer and Glenn Racz will run around this loop 2 more times and then be on their final set of Ram burpees.
Yeah, what's Colin and Kevin's time? 26?
26:23.
So
it's in play. It'll be tough. I mean, they're going to have to really. They're going to have to really crank on these burpees, especially because, this run is going to be slower given that they have to do it together.
Oh, man, second place right now. They look like they're a full length ahead, but third place is right behind them. So now second place is in jeopardy. There, you can see on the small screen.
Yeah, they are switching off here.
Yeah.
You can see Glenn Racz leading out Jack Bauer as these two will head into burpees.
I think they're being told, make sure to go past the line. Yeah, there we go. Sometimes when you're new to it, it's hard. It's hard to kind of say where the line is. Definitely when you have race brain, right? And definitely if you're new to the sport, it's very easy to get all that mixed up. But it's very important that we're really standardizing and being really strict with the rules nowadays. Like we mentioned before, it's very unfortunate Mark and Jessica's situation today at the Elite. I'm sure we'll see posts about it and everything. It'll be talked about. But it's important to do this for the sport. We have to set examples and we have to set standards and we have to abide by them to continue growing and making this sport more official.
Yeah, and if the punishment, for not meeting a standard is severe, I think that helps emphasize it, and athletes will, be mindful of it moving forward. And yeah, it's unfortunate for who it happens to, but in the long run, it is a good thing for the sport. As I think the time of Kevin and Colin might be out the window here for Jack and Glenn, but a very solid showing as they're going to bang out these last few burpees.
Very. They'll definitely have a top 5 team. They're looking strong, man. They're actually a really good pair. I like these two together. Oh, Glenn, there we go. Setting it down right.
Yeah,
There
it's a great pairing for the trading off situation, right? Because neither of them are really biased in one direction or another. You know, they both come from an endurance background, but, you know, neither of them is a complete monster on the stations, so they're balanced in that way. And so it plays out where, you know, they switch off on the bike, they switch off on the ski erg, they switch off on the rower, and, you know, maybe they split up the other stations in a certain way, but it helps you get to the point where you're able to hammer at the very end of the race. Yeah, you see them cross the line in the low 26:40s.
Wow.
That is the second fastest men's time so far this year. So if
So
they want
impressive.
to team up again, there's a pretty good chance that that's going to hold up.
I think they should. This isn't even Jack back in his prime, let's just say, right? He's still got a road to recover to get back into this thing. Glenn right now is just on another high right now, finishing back-to-back second places. I think now is a great time to team up with someone such as Glenn because he's feeling it. So very impressive showing for even Glenn. I mentioned it for Jack today, third and now a first, but Glenn is now second and first today. So they had a very successful Northern California DEKA FIT race today. And you can see the gentleman in the gray shorts at the bottom. He is straight hurting, but his buddy, the runner, just encouraging him to come in. Let's see if they can hold off for second. Still not a bad time. I mean, anything sub 30, I think is, I would say, decent. Definitely for somebody's first attempt, you know?
Absolutely, and you know, if they continue to team up again, maybe they'll sort of figure out a game plan where it's not just going to be one of them doing the vast majority of the station work, right? Even if, you know, even if he's going to do the entire bike, they split up some of the earlier stuff and maybe save, you know, the rower, for example. That was somewhere where moves were made after that, so I think they can sort of look back and unpack this because, you know, you see the guy here who had been doing mostly the running and very little station work. He's moving fairly well in these burpees, so it's not like, you know, you don't have a, you know, runner only in that situation. But now all of a sudden we've got a battle here for second place.
Yeah, this gentleman in the yellow hat, which I don't believe is Stephen Young, but he is moving much faster. You can see the team now switching off in the back. Oh, this is coming down to it. I don't know. This team still has a great chance of getting second. Oh, here comes John Howard. Okay, wow.
Yeah, so there's our leading co-ed team as John Howard has made his way in.
Man, they flew in there.
This should be a solidly top 10 co-ed time here for this squad of John Howard and Laura McGowan. As we mentioned in the open, the top co-ed time is still the top overall time this year with Lauren Griffith and Kevin Gregory at 26:10, but this is a strong showing for these two.
At 26:10, and that's faster than Colin and Kevin's time, correct?
It is.
Yeah,
by about 13 seconds.
That's just that tells you how fast Lauren is. Truly, I really do tell you that's how fast Lauren is. That's crazy.
So how about that? We got 3 men's teams all under 30 minutes.
Yeah, not bad.
And now this top co-ed team is about to finish off their last couple of reps and come in probably under 30:30.
Okay, Xander, real quick, what was the top female time again?
So the top female time so far this year, 30:42. Haley Brogan and Alicia Keekner. So I don't think Michelle and Julie will get that. But
they'll be right behind it, though.
Yeah, it's 30:42, 31 flat, and 31:21 are your top 3. So they may not quite get to that point, but they're still going to be, again, comfortably in the top 5 of women's teams so far this year.
Looks like they're switching off. Yeah, they might be finishing low 31, which I think would put them in third.
Yeah, Julie's got plenty of energy here. We saw this morning, she was very strong on all the stations, and I think getting a little bit of rest right there at the end is going to help her knock out these last 5 or 6 burpees pretty quickly.
Yeah, this is a pairing that if they did this fresh, they could probably easily knock off 45 seconds, maybe even a minute of their time, but they both competed earlier today, which I would say, honestly, it's worse to compete in elite and then wait 4 hours to compete again. I mean, your body gets so cold and stiff, opposed to, like, let's say an age group, when then you compete maybe an hour later, you could still be fairly warmed up for that matter. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they're feeling it for sure. Let's talk to Glenn and Jack, if we can corral those two young men.
So it looked like Michelle and Julie came in just under 31:20. I think they were around 31:15, which would put them as the number 3 female time so far this year. So pretty solid for that. Only 3 races in, they're the number 3 time. So again, if they want to team up later on in the year, they should have the opportunity to do so, you would expect.
What about John Howard and his partner? Was it Lauren McGowan?
Yeah, Lauren McGowan. So they were. There's been some pretty strong co-ed teams, especially in both races so far. I think they are in the top 10 right now. Looked like there are 6 co-ed teams all under 30 minutes, and I think they were just above. So they're not quite at the top, but still a solid showing for them.
Yeah, that co-ed division is strong. That is a strong field
we've seen some squads team up so far this year. You had Vivian Tafuto and Isaac Sanderson last time out, again Lauren Weeks and her husband Anthony. The first race of the year we had Morgan Scholes and AJ Golick getting after it. They won that race, and they're all the way down at I believe 5th place. Because Lauren Griffith and Kevin Gregory raced last time as well. So
and then,
the co-ed division is on
Kilgore
another level so far this year.
It is.
Grayson and Katie, honestly, I believe, are second.
Yeah, and when we do DEKA Worlds, man, all 3 will be exciting to watch, categories that is. But the co-ed is what I'm looking forward to the most for sure, because it is the top men and the top women teaming up. So it's great for the sport to see that.
And you can see there, Zone 11 is undefeated. Regardless of how you split up, you're going to be feeling it at the very end of this race.
Xander, this puts it really in perspective, right? The top time today was, what was it again? I apologize. I've already forgotten. They got the second fastest time, 27, or...
Yeah, they were... I think they were around 26:40, I believe, Jack and Glenn.
Okay, so, 26:40 roughly, right? The world record is 28:28 by Ryland. I mean, so as we get the gentleman on top of here that I mentioned, that you put in perspective the type of fitness and type of races that require, or type of things that require it, man, that's something else. So what's up, guys? Trying not to badmouth your time whatsoever. Don't mind me. I'm over here just saying my thing.
I mean, it is kind of crazy that... Yeah, it is kind of crazy that some solo people can do it like within a minute and a half of that.
Yeah, I was just putting in perspective for people at home, right? Yeah, you think of the requirements it takes for what it takes 2 people to do, might only for 1 person to do. It's mind-blowing in some cases, right? So, but you guys this is your second race today. So, you're considering your time, you've got the second fastest time in the world as of right now, right behind Kevin Gregory and Colin Stiefer. Yeah, but if you guys did this fresh, do you think you, let's say, can knock 30 seconds off, 45 seconds off? Were y'all feeling stiff or cold at all coming into this? How are y'all feeling?
So basically, if you see our wristband, it says 12:45 on that, and we were under the assumption that it was going to start at 12:45, but that was heat 2 of the elite teams wave. 12:30 was the start, and it's 12:27, and someone's like, hey, they're about to send them off, like heat 1. I'm like, wait a minute, there are multiple heats. So we had 3 minutes to warm up and then just hopped into it. So did a couple high knees and butt kicks, and then we're like, let's take it easy on that opening 500 and see what happens.
We were wondering where you were at the starting corral, so.
Yeah.
What's the record, by the way, that I think, is it Megiddo and has, by the way?
Eric
for the
Williams,
What you
I
doing
think
that
the world record,
men's team record overall?
I want to say that's 24 something.
I think if I can pull that up from last year real quick.
Yeah, we'll get it pulled up
That's
for you guys.
insane. But we kind of
It's a
copied their
fast time.
strategy. Yeah, we kind of copied their strategy where we did 250 on the rower, half and
Right,
half on the
right.
air bike. Like going the whole way, yeah, you might save 10 seconds, but your legs are fried on the next run,
Yep.
and it's just not worth it. Going 250s is the way to go.
100%. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you actually brought that up because that's what I was going to ask, and that's what Xander and I were talking about. You know, do you split up the rower? Do you split up the assault bike? And I mentioned it. Eric and David did that, and they're the world record holders for a reason. There has to be some sort of strategy and payoff for it, right? And you guys did that, and you guys did it really well too today.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we've coined that to be the Magida-Williams technique.
Yeah.
And we didn't execute it like they did by any means, but I like that model because I did a race before with Bubbles a couple years ago, and I did all the running, and I even made him do the whole skier, and it just it blew us up, and he wasn't able to fully capitalize on his bike even. So a lot of lessons learned after you do it a couple times. But yeah, this time working with Jack, who were pretty equally good at both station and some running.
He's
and
faster.
breaking it up like that, though, even the skier, we broke it up 4 ways. We only did 125 meters each. And for better or worse, I mean, I feel like that worked well. We were able to stay in the 130 high range.
134,
pace.
135,
Yeah, well, for him, I was a little worse. But yeah, so I felt like that, like you said, even that 15 seconds break goes a long way.
Yeah, we did a couple audibles also where I was like, Glenn, you got to take it over right now. I can't do this. So we work well together.
Yeah, exactly. Having
Yeah,
that
it seemed
audible
like-
and communication helps.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed like, you were able to sustain that throughout the course of the race, even after you guys switched on the bike, and Jack, you were doing the ball overs, and Glenn, you were kind of doubled over, just leaning against the other post.
Yeah.
I'm sure it didn't feel good, but it was like just enough recovery that you could bang out another 250 and then rest again. So it does seem like, especially in your case where, relatively similar skill sets, obviously fairly close to each other this morning, splitting up the work like that pays off in the long run, because we saw, another team take it out hot and they had a guy going real hard at the stations, but it seemed like after the rower is when you guys started to make up that ground and kind of do your thing and then ultimately pull away.
Exactly. Yeah. And even then, I feel like we could save a little time in the future, because I don't think in the end, I should have done that final tank even. And because that winded Jack a little bit at the end, so our running wasn't optimal at the end there. So it's kind of good. Every race, that's the fun thing about, there's a lot of tactics here on these team races, more than a standard, where there's more variables at play. And that's kind of fun for a couple geeks. Well, I mean, I speak for myself, but, engineers.
I think it's pretty safe to say we're both a couple of number nerds. But yeah, we were having some fun just kind of going over like, all right, you do 250, I'll lead into this one. We'll try to go this exact split. Like we couldn't help it. I think it worked out nicely.
Yeah, I think you guys are such veterans to the sport that no matter kind of who you team up with, and let's just say this is the first time you've teamed up together, correct? In any sport for that matter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that you guys are such veterans at this, you know exactly what you're well at, exactly what you may be weakened at, and you complement each other very well. So even though this is your first time, you guys do this again in the future. I mean, you guys are going to be 10 times better just because you know exactly now what you need to work on with you two working together, right? So with you guys being numbers guys, I know you're going to calculate that very well strategically, but being the second fastest time in the world as of today, do we see another pairing again in the future? Do we see world champs on the radar? Or was this just kind of spur of the moment? Hey, do you want to get a podium?
Worlds. Yeah. First,
I think you
have to be fast like you have to be fast like Glenn to get there solo, so that makes it even more worth going there. Yeah. No, but
all right,
but
you're talking about solo.
Yeah. Yeah, Luke, you and I we commented on teams last year at Worlds, and we saw like the different strategies where I just think it's so fascinating. Every single year you might have second place be the team that does run heavy and workout heavy, and then first place and third place might be the split. It's not a guaranteed order, but I think if you look at the athlete's skill set, it definitely, if it favors splitting it up into 250s, like we learned pretty quickly, that's the way to go. And other teams, like if you have Kevin Gregory at your disposal, it makes sense to go with him on most of the zones. And if you have a really fast runner, but I think it is really cool just because Glenn was a minute ahead of me during the race, like normally in the solo race earlier. So it was kind of cool just getting to see like where he's able to go fast and shave some time and what makes him so fast in the solo race. So I think trading off like this was a really eye-opening experience.
Yeah, we were talking about during the broadcast. Right now, it's only been 3 races so far this year, right? But the fastest team's time is a co-ed team. It's Kevin Gregory and Lauren Griffith, and presumably that won't hold up when some of the other men's teams get their opportunity. But that just goes to show you that, like, when you have athletes whose strengths can play off each other and line up perfectly, and if you have the right plan, it doesn't matter. Normally you might think, oh yeah, 2 top-level male athletes, of course they're going to be faster, but not necessarily the case so far this year, because Kevin was faster with Lauren Griffith than he was with Colin Steefer. Now, it was very close, about 12 seconds. But, yeah, I think that's the exciting thing about this as this is going to unfold, whether it's teams that try and do what you guys did or the McGee to Williams method. I guess it's, their name for now until someone goes faster. Or is it that more polarized approach? I think, what I hope is that when we get to World Championships this year, you've got, a bunch of strong teams that all approach it differently in the race at the same time.
Do you guys? I totally agree with that. And do you guys think teams is like the most exciting format out there after watching
100%.
it, like just throughout 100%. The year? It's so fast. It is really super exciting.
Yep. It comes down to errors and it comes down to seconds, right? During a typical long race, you can kind of pull away just a little bit. There's a station that can make or break, and you can give that leverage, right? And teams, not so much, right? And we saw that at the very beginning of the race. That team, that group of guys that was with y'all at the beginning, great start, but then just completely capped after that, right? So it's just, you never know what it may be, but team race is by far the most exciting thing. I don't think anyone can discuss otherwise, honestly. So,
cool.
Well, how do you guys feel? I mean, congratulations on a double podium day from both of you. Jack, it is confirmed. You did get 3rd place, my friend. Congratulations, 3 for 3 in Norcal.
Appreciate it. Yeah, if you add it up, so we got 1 now. Glenn got 2 in the solo, and I got 3 in the solo. So 1, 2, 3. There we go.
Right. No, I love it. You guys, as much as Isaac won today and everything, you two have definitely earned today because you got double podiums, which is a rare sight. So congratulations, guys. Well done.
Awesome. Yeah. It looks like we have the top women's team if you want to talk with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring them out.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
All right, Glenn.
Yep.
All right, Jack. Have a good one, guys. Congrats today.
Thanks, guys.
And they're sitting in the same exact seats as last time too.
We're sweaty.
I think we just saw this about 3 hours ago. I don't know. This is
Hey guys.
This is an echo going on right now. What's going on, ladies? Welcome back.
Thank you. Just running a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, walk us through it. How are you feeling after second race of the day? It looked like, as far from a female standpoint, there really wasn't much competition, maybe from the fit for that is, or the team's race, excuse me. But as far as like a time, did you have a time in mind? Did you want to be the fastest team of the world as of right now? Was that on the radar, or was it more just the last spur of the moment? Let's just get it together. Let's just throw down. Let's get podium. Let's win. Go home with a smile on our face. Walk us through it.
Yeah. Well, I think we're both pretty equal in the fit, so we wanted to see what we could do as a team. So we wanted to split it up. My runs are definitely where I feel stronger, so I did a few of those, and we kind of strategized in the beginning for me to do a few of those and her to do the stations, and we kind of split everything else from there. We definitely wanted to push it as fast as we could and try to get a decent time, and I'm happy with what we did. I think we did pretty well.
And we always go out to win, so.
Yeah.
There you go. I like that answer. Good answer.
And unfortunately, we didn't get to see as much of your race just because the cameras were following the men a lot. So we didn't see exactly how you all split up all of the work. But was it a case, because we just talked to Jack and Glenn, and they took the approach of they basically split every run 50-50. From what we could tell, it looked like you guys had one of you waiting in that transition zone to do parts of the run. So was that how you approached it? Did you split up the runs and the work as well?
Yeah, so I did a few of the runs in the beginning, and Julie did the whole stations for the row and the lunges, and then after that we pretty much split it half and half.
That's good. Yeah, and how are you feeling after that? Do you prefer that strategy now after teaming up? Is this the first time y'all have ever teamed up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. It's always it's always equally difficult, even if you do the runs. But I think based off of how we both perform, it was good to split things half and half, especially towards the end. So I think that the strategy played out pretty well.
Yeah, and I regardless of the strategy of what y'all did coming into this, I mean, y'all put down one of the fastest times in the world today from doing that as well too.
Awesome.
Granted, we're only 3 races in. I know this, right? It's still early in the race season, but still, it could be a time that holds off, right? Now, is this another thing that we possibly see y'all team up again in the future, or do you think y'all complement each other very well?
I know. We'll see. I think never say never, right? It's definitely always on the table, but we'll just have to see where we end up.
I know we're both competing co-ed.
Yeah.
So,
Right,
I mean, if we both make into co-ed worlds, like that's what I competed last year, and she's going to team up with a really good runner this year for co-ed, then maybe you'll see us run 3 times at worlds if we make it all 3 times.
All right. Yes, absolutely. Pulling of bubbles. I love it. All right. That's good.
Yeah.
And so, one thing that I think we saw for the first time today, or maybe it happened earlier, but with sending out all the teams at once, right? You had the top men's teams, you had the co-ed race, and you all as well. Is that helpful at all to have, either co-ed teams or men's teams a little bit in front of you or going back and forth, especially in a case like this where there maybe wasn't as much competition in your specific race? Is it helpful to have, sort of other people of a similar ability out there, even if you're not directly competing with them?
100%. Like, I feel like because there wasn't very many people in our group, it really helps to have other teams to go against, because in your mind when you're racing, it doesn't matter if they're male or female. They're all your competition.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah, and it's just good to have people on the course. I mean, even other groups, not even in the elite teams, just having people out there just kind of gives you a better gauge of how to pace yourself. So yeah, I think it's always helpful, especially if people are going faster. So it was nice having the guys, take it out a little bit.
No, we loved watching it, and I'm glad they made the call to do that. And honestly, I hope they do that in more races. If you got someone on such a high caliber, it will help push you, right? For that matter.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if we had another top female team coming out after you guys, that might be a different story, right? Or 5 or 6 others.
Totally.
But having that team, because y'all were right behind John Howard and his team. Y'all didn't finish far behind the top co-ed time, so it was really fun to watch on that matter. So. And I wanted to say real quick, too, so Xander, if you had another question, let me ask just real quick. It has been confirmed that you two are, in fact, 2nd, 3rd place today, so congratulations. Maybe y'all can talk to Jessica and everything as well, too. So congrats again on a double podium for today, getting first place and then 2nd and 3rd. Y'all definitely earned it, so congrats.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. Xander, you got any more questions?
That's about all I had. No, not really. I think it's just, thanks for joining us again. Congratulations.
Appreciate it, guys.
And look forward to seeing you all, whether it's as a team or individually throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, make it happen. Come on, all team options at Worlds, ladies. All team options. Come on.
Let's do it.
Bring it on.
Thanks, guys.
All right, take care, Julie. Take care, Michelle. Thank you.
So there we go, an exciting teams event. We know it's going to be electric regardless of how it shakes out, but we got to see some teams that maybe it was just, hey, we're all here together, let's just team up today, and maybe that doesn't turn into anything later on, or we see these pairings later on in the year. But it looks like we're going to have a few times coming up on the screen here momentarily. Jason letting us know we have some splits from this race. You can see here Jack Bauer and Glenn Racz with that top men's time, 26:43, getting it done. Yeah.
Man,
absolutely hammering, and that goes to show you right there the power of splitting up the runs. And the other team, the other men's team there, Daniel Ferrier and Damian Resch, we didn't have those names during the competition, but that's that 2nd place team. And 1919, it's solid, but that's about 2 minutes, and that's pretty close to the gap of the race overall. Is splitting up that run. And Jack and Glenn, because they split it up, they were able to run faster than either of them did during the individual race.
Yeah, those 2 gentlemen that finished in 2nd, I wouldn't knock them for one, the guy who was running the entirety saying he's a slow runner, and I definitely wouldn't knock the guy who did all the station work saying he's a slow, let's just say CrossFitter for the sake, right? If they learn to split everything up, those two could very well be names that we see in the future that actually do really well in the sport, because they seem just fast and strong enough to really be contenders. So congrats to them for holding off in second place, though. But definitely Jack and Glenn with that time. That is a blazing fast time. And if they did that fresh, I know it'd be a low 26 for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that second place team, if they've teamed up before, but if not, then this is a great learning experience. Understanding like, all right, we have, one is a better runner, one is a stronger station athlete, but maybe, kind of like what Michelle and Julie were talking about, if, they split it up a little bit earlier or handle it slightly differently, they could shave a minute off that time just because they're not redlined quite as early on.
Absolutely. Yep.
And here's a look at that top women's team. Again, not a lot of competition, but a very strong time thrown down by Julie Best and Michelle Navarro. Believe it's the third fastest time so far this year by a women's team. So, again, they're both, you heard it from them a couple minutes ago, they're both trying to compete co-ed at World Championships. If they qualify, then maybe they'll race, a third event, assuming they make it there individually as well. But either way, even if it's only a one-off, a strong showing from the two of them today.
Yeah, again, great that we were able to throw them all in the mix with the co-ed team and the male team, because we might have not seen that type of time if they didn't have anybody to push them, right? Because if you don't have anyone to gauge or to feed off of or to be competitive with, it's hard to throw down a fast time. Even though you may be a top-of-the-world athlete, mentally you just don't, you check out, and that's what Julie said, right? So I think it's great that they did it. They obviously solidified themselves to world champs if they decide to go that route. So
yeah, and just like Jack and Glenn, they had a sound strategy that paid off in the end, because I think it stood out how much left in the tank Julie had for those final 10 burpees or so. And I think that's a sign that they put in the right amount of effort and shared the work in the right way to really come through with a strong showing, as evidenced by that time.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
And then here's a look at the co-ed team. So a very strong performance from John Howard and Laura McGowan. We talked about them maybe squaring off against the other team, Dustin Needham and Kanika Rogers. So it was John Howard, John and Laura able to get after it, and themselves put together a solid time. Maybe not quite as close to the top as our male and female winners, but I think that speaks more to the level of competition in the other co-ed races, more so than just their ability as a team, because we've seen just some of the best in the world teaming up in these first two races in the co-ed side, and they didn't really have competition in that same way, although they were able to sort of maybe feed off of the second and third place men's teams, as well as Michelle and Julie in there as well, and that helped pull them to a solid time.
Yeah, co-ed times, if you're definitely sub 30, that's phenomenal. But if you're anywhere even near 30, that's still a great time. The fact that let's say this puts them in the top 10 fastest time in the world, but not top 5, it still doesn't knock their performance today. I mean, this is a very solid time by John Howard and McGowan, of course. They did an awesome job today, so a well-deserved first place. Congrats to John for getting the podium today as well. And Dustin Needham finishing strong behind in second. And we know with the fattest there, if I'm pronouncing that name right, she was pregnant. So for her to get third place, even being in the full term for the most part in pregnancy, that's pretty impressive. So I'm excited to see that podium pick later.
Absolutely. An awesome afternoon, a great morning as well. So just, exciting racing. Good to be back on the call with you, Luke, and I'm excited, for what this means throughout the course of the rest of the season, right? We've seen some athletes race multiple times, some come out for the first time and throw down a solid time. Great to have Jack back, and we're not even halfway in to the regular season here in DEKA FIT. It's already been a great season with a lot more still to come.
It has, it's been an exciting year so far. Race 4 is going to be in Austin, Texas. I will be there. I will be on site with my man Jason Dupree behind the cameras. And not only just commentating with you, Xander, but of course I'll be competing for the first time, so that's going to be exciting. I get to put the race shoes back on for a while. It's been a minute since I've been in a DEKA arena. But Isaac claiming that he's going to potentially be there as well too. Do we see a three-peat? Do we see different names? Do we see new people? Do we see returning athletes like the champ from last year, Rylan Shadegg? I don't know. This is going to be exciting, man. So, if you think the first 3 races have been something to watch, the remaining races, now that we get closer and creep closer to the World Championships, is going to get way more competitive.
Absolutely, and about 4 weeks to go, so maybe a guy like Isaac to put in a little bit more training. He only had 2 weeks between races. He, of course, has High Rocks Anaheim as well, so we'll see how that unfolds. But yeah, a lot of excitement to follow. We've got that. Before then, the OCR Report will have coverage from Big Bear for the next race in the Spartan National Series as well, so some fun stuff ahead in both the OCR and hybrid spaces. So yeah, that'll just about do it for us today. Want to send a special thank you to the members of the OCR Report for making this race live stream possible. This coverage has been a presentation of the OCR Report. You can support live streams like this one for less than $5 a month by becoming a member of the OCR Report through Patreon. Go to patreon.com/the OCR Report. So for Jason Dupree on the ground in Sacramento, making it happen behind the scenes, getting our interviews coordinated, for our rabbits out there on course, putting in a solid day's work themselves, and of course for my broadcast partner, Luke Halterman, I'm Xander Keane. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time here on the OCR Report.
See you on the next one, guys.